All right, in lesson 36, we're going to talk about what's called the distributive property of rational expressions. And we've already had the distributive property, and the only difference is we're going to be talking about these things called rational expressions. I just want to briefly review the distributive property. And all the distributive property is when you take the term outside of the parentheses and you take it times each of the terms inside. So I have A times B, which is AB, plus, because of the plus symbol, and then A times C is AC. And I've simplified this expression. Now, let's take a look at example 1. So we're still distributing, but we're using what are called rational expressions, which really are represented by fractions. So we're still going to do the same thing. We're going to distribute. So we're going to take what's outside times this, and then times this. So I'm going to write that out quickly. So you have x squared over y times the x squared over y inside minus, now distribute again, times the 3y squared over m. Now what we do is we're going to simplify the top and the bottom in each of these. So I'm going to kind of color code this. So we're going to simplify the top and the bottom there. So in the top, let's see, x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. Now simplify the bottom. Y to the 1st times y to the 1st is y squared. Minus, now let's simplify the other part of this, the top and the bottom. So I have a 3y to the 4th because, or excuse me, those aren't, I have an x and a y. So let me erase that. Okay, so what we really have then is a 3x squared y squared, right? Because x squared times y squared is just x squared y squared over ym. Now, I need to take a look at it, and let's see here. On the top, in the top and the bottom, is there anything common? No. So there's nothing I can cancel out. How about here? Now on the right side, I notice that I have a y and I have a y squared in the top, or two of them, and I have a y in the bottom. I can cancel out a common y, leaving a y up there. So my final answer then, and I'll write it to the right of this, is x to the 4th over y squared minus, then what do I have left in the top? 3x squared y over m. And I've simplified this expression. Now in example 2, and in fact in the next few examples, we're just going to practice simplifying expressions. Now, remember you can't simplify an expression if it's to a negative exponent. So this is in the top, so I need to bring this down. So I have just 1 in the top, then the negative 4 is still negative 4, but it's squared now. Now be careful. Since there's not any parentheses here, you're going to square the 4 and then take the opposite of it. So 4 squared is 16, the opposite of 16 is negative 16. So it's 1 over a negative 16. All right, example 3, similar type of problem, except now it's in the bottom, we need to move everything up. So the negative 4 is still negative 4, but to the positive 2. Square the 4, take the opposite of it. So let's see, 4 times 4 is 16, take the opposite of 16, negative 16. All right, example 4. It's in the top, move everything down. So I still have that opposite of a negative 4, but it's to the positive 3 power. Now make sure you do the exponent first, then take the opposite. So I'm going to cube what's in the parentheses. So negative 4 times a negative 4 times a negative 4. And let's see, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16 times a negative 4. So I get 64. So out of this, I get 64. Now, what's the opposite of 64? Negative 64. So a negative 164. And our final example, everything's in the bottom, move it up. And I don't need the 1 in the bottom. So you have the opposite of a negative 4 to the positive 3 power. And similar problem, remember out of this we've got 64 and take the opposite of that, so I get a negative 64. Alright, so the topic of this lesson was distributive property of rational expressions, but realize when we talk about rational expressions, really we're talking about fractions here, aren't we? Lesson 36.